Okay, I'm placing an order to buy Canadian dollar. The price I'm placing 1.35646. Okay, the other place to buy Canadian dollar at 1.35646.
Thanks so much for bringing us the latest in global news. Now, it's a big week for central banks. Let's take a look at some of the events we're watching. Later today, the Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, will be speaking on a webinar entitled LIBOR Entering the Endgame. He'll be joined by the New York Fed President John Williams. The panel's going to be moderated by our very own Francine Lacqua. And tomorrow, the ECB publishes its bank lending survey, and the UK's Office of Budget Responsibility is going to publish 3 economic scenarios on the impact of the pandemic. And looking now to the markets, just as we're 30 minutes into the European opening. Stock 600 up 0.7%, FTSE 100 up over 1%, the French futures up 0.9%, and the DAX up 1.17%. This is Bloomberg.
I've always wanted to learn another language, but every time I try, it never sticks. So I decided to give Babbel a try, and I really like the teaching method of the app. I started with the beginner lesson on Babbel, and it starts with simple words and phrases, and soon you're putting those words into a conversation. Each lesson takes about 10 to 15 minutes, and they're all really different, which keeps things interesting. The app is really smart. It actually keeps track of the words I'm struggling with so I can practice them and get better. I chose Babbel because it was created by real language teachers. They built it around real life, how people actually communicate, and what they care about. I can't wait to use my new language skills in the real world. Dos cervezas, por favor.
With Babbel, get conversational in Spanish, French, German, and more. It just takes 10 to 15 minutes a day. Now try Babbel free. Just go to Babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com, Babbel.com.
Who's in your corner? At Commonwealth Financial Network, our advisors would say we are. Our supportive environment lets you be true to yourself, and our culture of accountability means we don't just ask for your feedback. We act on it, so we can deliver the solutions you need to enrich the lives of your clients and build the business you've always dreamed of. Ready to discover the difference? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.
You're fierce. You take care of business and don't hold back. Taking care of your health shouldn't be any different. You know when something's off. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, and rashes. Listen to your body. It could be lupus. We're here to help you take control. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Aslinda Amin.
It does feel like Singapore is a country on the cusp of change. Let's get insights, perspective from Sylvia Lim. She is the chairman of the Workers' Party. Sylvia, what's your assessment of the party's performance and the overall performance of the opposition?
This was certainly a better performance for opposition parties.
Position open on Canadian dollar. So we opened long at 1.35646.
In a new group representation constituency called Sengkang GRC. I think overall this election was quite a different one from previous ones being held in the pandemic. The modes of campaigning were different. And I think one of perhaps the questions on voters' minds was the timing of the election. We do know from various polls before that there was a sense that the majority of Singaporeans felt that the government should focus on controlling and handling the pandemic rather than to have an election at this time, because its term was still able to run until April next year. So there were various factors at play, I believe.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning, I'm Sandra Kilhoff with this Bloomberg Business Flash, and we are seeing European stocks firmly in the green 17 minutes into the European trading day. The FTSE up 1.1%, similarly so for the DAX. In Frankfurt, the CAC 40 higher by 0.9, while the Stock 600 has gained 0.7% this morning. US futures also pointing to a higher open, and it all follows a risk-on day in Asia, with most Asian benchmarks closing higher by more than 2%. The Hang Seng still trading, though, and only up 0.6%, so slightly more modest gains there. Now, the optimism surrounding an economic recovery is pushing the dollar lower today, currently down 0.2%, while we are seeing the yen holding at 106.9. In turn, other G10 currencies strengthening. Sterling at 126, the euro up 0.3 at 113. The Aussie dollar, the outperformer today, up 0.4% at the moment. 10-year Treasury yields ticking lower by a basis point at 63 basis points, but 10-year bond yields higher at negative 45. 10-year gilt yields similarly so at 17 basis points. Gold continuing its rally above $1,800 a barrel, now at $1,800 a troy ounce, now at $1,808 a troy ounce this morning. Oil, meanwhile, retreating ahead of this week's OPEC Plus meeting. WTI down more than 1% at $40 a barrel, Brent at $42 a barrel. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Ian Garrans with more on what's going on around the world.
Sandra, thank you. Florida has broken the daily record for all U.S. states with more than 15,000 new coronavirus cases. New York City, meanwhile, reporting no new confirmed virus-related deaths for the first time in more than 4 months. In Hong Kong, 38 new cases on Sunday fed fears of a resurgence in the Asian financial hub. And South Africa introduced a curfew and alcohol ban after virus rules were flouted. A closely followed regional Spanish election has seen the Basque National Party, or PNV, win in a landslide. It'll boost Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's plans to pass his first budget after more than 2 years in power. The PNV are key allies of the socialists. Sanchez's last attempt to pass a budget led to the national government's collapse and an early election. And up to 200 workers on a farm in Herefordshire have been told to self-isolate after 73 people tested positive for coronavirus, according to the BBC. Vegetable producer AS Green & Co. has gone into lockdown after the positive test. Food and other essential supplies are being delivered to the farm. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Caroline.
Thank you so much, Leanne Gerrans, with the World News update. And now to Brexit. The UK is planning to spend more than £700 million on border infrastructure ahead of its departure from the EU single market. That's according to the Cabinet Office Minister Michael Gove, who's insisted that everything will be in place by the 31st of December. It comes as the government today launches a major campaign to prepare Britons for the end of the transition period, and the Home Secretary Priti Patel unveils more details of her post-Brexit immigration plan. For more, we're joined by Bloomberg's UK government editor Stuart Biggs. Look, yet another information campaign on the airwaves, but is actually £700 million enough? Are the rules even clear about what is going to be checked at the border, what is not?
Well, so far, we've reported various haulage groups and industry figures who say that actually, even though the government is now clearly ramping up its preparations for the post-Brexit border, that actually a lot of the infrastructure is not ready and doesn't actually show signs of being able to be ready unless there's a huge improvement in the next 6 months. So it's really coming down to, this final period before the transition period ends, and the government, clearly has a huge amount of work to do before that.
Yeah, and Stuart, I mean, we had Liz Truss, of course, sending that letter that was leaked, suggesting perhaps that there's at least some divisions inside the government, though, of course, though Michael Gove very firmly denied that. Is there also a sense that, in a way, the UK is doing all these preparations, perhaps, to try and make Europe take them a bit more seriously in the Brussels talks on Brexit, raising the ante, if you like?
Well, I think that's right, and I think the fact that the trade negotiations are still going on sort of plays into this on both fronts. I think, clearly there's a game of sort of cat and mouse in trying to pressure the other side to get a better deal. But there's also the fact that without the deal in place and signed and sealed, as it were, the preparations themselves are more complicated. And so it's a twofold issue regarding the trade negotiations.
Yeah, and it's actually our neighbours, Ireland, who are becoming most worried, aren't they, about the border? More comments on that from the Taoiseach just a few days ago about it. So, that is going to be a significant issue too.
Yes, and with Ireland, they've voiced, their concerns throughout the Brexit process. You remember the bilateral meeting Johnson had with the Taoiseach in order to get a deal over the line. And Ireland has so much trade that runs through, mainland Britain. So, what's at stake for Ireland is clearly huge.
And one other issue, of course, that's very much in a lot of people's minds at the moment, Stuart, which is the Huawei decision, the decision on to what extent to which Huawei is going to be taken out of UK 5G networks. That decision's coming tomorrow, is that right?
That's what we hear, that the National Security Council will give its advice tomorrow, and we're hearing that the announcement could be immediately after that. There's huge pressure building on Boris Johnson's government to reverse its position to give Huawei a percentage of 5G networks, and that's it's coming from China's policy towards Hong Kong. There's opposition within the Tories to how China's handled the coronavirus outbreak and information flow, but there's also the broader sense that the US, for example, put in sanctions against Huawei that makes it much more complicated to use its equipment in 5G networks.
Yeah. Stuart Biggs, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Bloomberg's UK government editor. Well, speaking of which, Roger, just crossing the Bloomberg terminal this morning, we have news of China to sanction US officials and entities over Xinjiang. So China is to sanction US Congressional Executive Committee on China, plus the Senator Marco Rubio. He's among the US officials that China is going to target. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Ford is set to reveal its new Bronco SUV tonight. It's in partnership with Walt Disney. Custom 3-minute films will run on Disney's ABC, ESPN, and National Geographic networks in the network's first commercial break during the 8 p.m. Eastern Time hour. Amazon is delaying its next big budget video game by at least 6 months. New World was supposed to debut it in late August, but it's now scheduled for release next spring. And this comes after Amazon's last big game debuted in May to scathing reviews. We may get more details this week about that rescue plan for airline Virgin Atlantic. And stocks are coming off modest gains to begin the week. The Dow led Friday's advance up 1.3%. The Nasdaq gained 0.5%. But still starts at a record high. We're tracking crude oil futures as well ahead of an OPEC-related meeting on Wednesday, where the group may agree to ease production cuts. Denise Pellegrini, Bloomberg Radio.
The world's financial decision makers connect on the Bloomberg terminal. The buy side and the sell side together, collaborating across markets and countries in real time, sharing ideas, negotiating trades, and forming an influential network of over 325,000 financial professionals that helps power global markets. Isn't it time you join them? Request a demo at bloomberg.com/professional.
You have discovered new ways to connect with family, friends, and coworkers, and that you can do business virtually and productively. Embrace your new perspective. You can't go back to the old ways of doing things entirely. Witham can help your business thrive in this new reality with our innovative business solutions. Remote, secure, collaborative, productive. Welcome to the new normal of business. Visit Witham.com to learn how we can help you adapt and succeed. Witham.
NJIT, New Jersey.
Decisions. Clearing. Isn't it great? So much choice. But
hey, listening to me on your desktop isn't getting anything done. You need to take this Monday morning by the scruff of the neck. Take this sunshine as an omen and carve.
I'm placing stop on profit for Canadian dollar. 135.666. So stop on profit for Canadian dollar at 135.666.
Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers, and to you that rock that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake, or snack on us. Come on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details, visit costa.co.uk/terms.
London. Toolstation are here to help get your job safely started and finished, with over 60 branches within the M25. All open with social distancing and contactless click and collect from 5 minutes. And with 20,000 top trade quality products to choose from. Order online now for collection in London branches and get £5 off when you spend over £30 with the code LON530. So, get your job started at toolstation.com. Terms and conditions apply.
This isn't just music, it's a feeling. The feeling of being out on the road with the sun on your face and the wind in your hair. And because the AA are always ready to get you back on the road, there's no need for that feeling to stop. The AA. Join today.
Imagine winning 10 grand. Yes! With Set for Life, you can win 10 grand every month for 30 years. Get in! Amazing! Woo! Yes! Sweet! Unbelievable! Set for Life from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Play Monday online or on the app. Prize may be capped. Rules, procedures and game-specific rules apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Are you fully informed on the NBA? On the NBA Hangtime podcast, veteran sports writers Sekou Smith and John Schumann analyze the latest NBA news, storylines, and discussions with guests from around the basketball universe.
Isaiah Thomas joined us here on the Hangtime podcast. Isaiah, good morning.
Everybody's doing well. As you know, my daughter tested positive.
Search NBA Hangtime on TuneIn to listen.
Broadcasting live to London on DAB digital radio, to New York, Bloomberg 1130, to Washington DC, Bloomberg 99.1, to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1, to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
A very good morning from London. It's 8:30 a.m. I'm Caroline Hepker.
And I'm Roger Hearing, and you're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
So this development, Roger, I just mentioned it very briefly as the headline hit at 8:23, that China is to sanction US officials and entities over Xinjiang. It includes the Senator Marco Rubio and other officials. Look, we're going to bring you more on this throughout the program because this could be really fascinating, that China is getting into the kind of sanctioning of individuals in a tit-for-tat way. It's usually been the zone of the US and Europe to do that, but now China's doing it too.
Indeed, and I suppose the question that has to be asked is this more than symbolic? Because how many investments could they perhaps have, these people in China that would be affected? How impacted would they be by a travel ban, if that's what's being talked about? Because in many cases, I suspect the links are not that strong in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what China means by sanction, doesn't it? We shall see. Right, let me, though, take you to the markets before we go any further. So right now, the US stocks at 600 is up by 0.8%. The FTSE 100 also having a good morning, up by 1.1%, with the Xetra DAX higher by 1.3%. In the bond markets, as we get a big week for central bank decisions, of course, from the ECB, from Japan, South Korea, etc. German yields at negative 46 basis points. We're largely heading higher for European yields. US yields at 60.
I close my position on Canadian dollar, 135.666. We have profit £200.
is slightly stronger. The euro really is very interesting because it's close to breaching its 200-day moving average, and that would be a big deal. As for the crude markets, WTI crude futures are down by 1%. Brent crude also lower, 0.9%. So those are the markets.
Right, let's move on to our top stories. Now, the UK is planning to spend more than £700 million on border infrastructure ahead of its departure from the European Union's single market. Here's the Cabinet Office Minister Michael Gove, who's in charge of the country's Brexit preparations.
When people voted to take back control in the referendum 3.5 years ago, they wanted us to be in a position where we could trade with our neighbours in Europe, yes, but also have new trading relationships with other countries. That means that we need to have our borders upgraded in order to facilitate that trade.
A leaked letter, though, remember, from Trade Secretary Liz Truss last week set out her department's concerns about the government's post-Brexit border plans. That includes an increased risk of smuggling and a possible challenge from the World Trade Organization. But Gove said that there was no disagreement within government and it was time to, quote, get cracking on implementation.
Meanwhile, the government's launching a public information campaign to help businesses and the public ahead of the Brexit transition period. A survey shows only a quarter of directors say their firms are ready.
And now to the French tech tax.